Alright guys, I actually made a huge mistake. If you want to know what that is, we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. My biggest mistake, at least I think it is. Excellent content regardless. It has developed some sort of issue. Welcome back, Stupid Fast Nation. How are y'all doing on this fine January evening? Hope y'all are killing it. We are back to work here on the budget drag blaster. If you guys didn't see in the last video, I actually got pretty much of the bottom end put together. We picked this thing up for a staggering $500 from subscriber Mike. I also made a few simple mistakes. I'll talk about some of those here in a few minutes. One of them was I forgot the ball for the clutch as well as the lock washer that goes under the nut for the clutch basket. So I couldn't finish putting the entire engine together to be able to put this in the frame and get this thing ripping and riding. But that is the goal in this video. So without further ado, we're gonna get right into what's going on and we'll get this thing cracking, guys. If you're ready to see the $500 drag budget blaster build, then sit back and let's do this. All right guys, so check it out. I have the bottom end here, partially disassembled, ready to put the components. I got them from Rocky Mountain. It took 2 days to get here, really quick and easy shipping. I do have a link in the description below if you guys want to check Rocky Mountain out. But two things I really want to go over super quickly. Number one, no, I am not using the 2200 horsepower turbo from my 7-second drag truck. Unfortunately, the drag truck has claimed that turbo, and I don't think we could get this little single cylinder two-stroke to spool up that turbo anyways, considering this truck behind the camera here is going to have quite a time spooling that turbo. So sorry guys if I was a little misleading in my clickbait picture, my title picture from the last video. But it can be tough out here in YouTube algorithm land, and sometimes, you know, you have to find creative ways to capture people's attention. No matter what, the goal is to turbo this two-stroke efficiently and effectively with the most amount of power that we can get out of it. And that's my goal at the end of the day. It should still be excellent content regardless. It's just title pictures. They have to be a little grabbing in order to get some views on the channel. But now that we got that out of the way, there is one other thing I wanted to cover. In the last video when I was porting the cylinder, there was actually a couple little things that I didn't show in the last video, so I will go over those. I'm gonna do a little bit of touch-up work on the cylinder, so if you guys are hanging around for the series, you know, definitely check out the finished product on this, so that way, if you decide to port similar to this, that you don't make the same mistake I did. And I'll talk about that once we get on the table here. I'd like to get the bottom end put together, finish the cylinder, put that on, then we can get it in the quad and get ripping and riding, guys. All right, guys, so now that we got the clutch done, we got the kicker gear in place, we can put the side cover on, but we got to talk about something real fast. This is really important, so stay with me. Okay, so we need to feed the turbo with oil. This is important, right? There's an oil feed on the very top of the turbo, and there's an oil drain on the very bottom of the turbo. Now, without getting too meticulous into detail, which I will do in the next video when we actually install the turbo, I will tell you that the way I'm gonna feed oil to this, see, Blasters originally had an oil injection setup on this. They had pre-mix tank with an oil injection setup, and yes, I did pre-think this out. This did come with the original oil injection unit. All the parts were here except for the pin that goes on this gear that is driven by the crank inside the case here, right? So I was missing the pin, so I just took a drill bit and I made a little piece for that real quick. Really, really super simple. Keeping this build low budget and super simple. And so basically, I'll put it in there then. Basically, this will then take oil from a reservoir and feed it up to the feed of the turbo. And so that's how we're gonna feed oil to the top of the turbo to keep the internals of that properly lubricated so we don't have any issues with that. And, you know, even though this is a $130 eBay turbo, if the seals blow out and this thing starts to develop a leak, it's a two-stroke, it can burn a little bit of extra oil. Not a big deal, right? So anyways, without further ado, let me get the side case on and we'll get to part number 2 of what I need to talk about in this video. All right, guys, so moving on, we got the bottom end fully installed, put together. It is sitting over to my left on the chair with a cover over it until I put the top end on. We got the drag clutch, drag springs put in there. She's all gasketed, brand new seals, fully sealed, ready to go. We talked about the oil injection pump, how that's gonna work to feed oil to the turbo. We'll get into some more details on that stuff in the next video, but let's stick to the goal of this video, getting this thing ripping and riding. So, my biggest mistake, at least I think it is my single-handedly largest mistake on this build. It's actually not near as bad as you would think, but I consult with a few people on the side on porting, and there happens to be like this whole community of blaster lovers out there. Now, your boy, John, he's just a two-stroke lover in general. I love all two strokes equally and fairly. I like my vintage and niche ones, my historic ones just a little bit more than like the newer stuff, but I do love all two strokes. And, you know, you guys know I have a very soft spot in my heart for the Banshee, and the Blaster's like the little brother to the Banshee. So I love Blasters just as much. They're great, they're cheap, they work great, my kids ride them, they're just wonderful machines all around. So with that being said, the design, it works pretty good. Let's talk about the porting. That's kind of where I made the mistake. My porters, my guys out there, I won't name anybody. This may also be a very highly debatable topic. There may be some, you know, arguing in the comments below. I don't know how much some of you guys know that watch these videos, but what I'm told, now let's talk about the porting real quick, right? And then I'll tell you guys what I was told. So the exhaust, we raised that up 1 millimeter. We opened the top sides up a little bit. We smoothed everything out, opened the outer diameter, took some out of the bottom lip there, and that should be super smooth, no turbulence issues going in and out of the exhaust. I don't know that we're going to be reusing a lot of the exhaust gases once we put a turbo on it, but for NA, that will be wonderful. Super smooth, lots of flow, a little bit more top end, right? And so we talked about the porting in the last video. I was doing just above a mild trail port. I didn't want to do full drag port for this, right? So keep that in mind. I wanted to leave room on the table to improve just in case something isn't right. So the exhaust, super happy with how that turned out. The intake, I removed a little bit out of the throat, not a lot, removed a ton of casting imperfections, and then basically I knife edged to the center of that, almost knife edged, not fully. It is semi-rounded. And then I lowered that boost port just a smidge, maybe about 1 millimeter on that, and I re-angled that so that way the air can, you know, smoothly go up on top of the piston without any issues. So, with that being said, I'm really happy with that. We didn't open the intakes up at all. We just removed a lot of material to open the flow going into the intakes and boost port. And then the transfers, we removed a bunch of material out of there and knife edged the center of the transfers, and I did not smooth those out. You can smooth those out. It definitely will improve flow. Probably not as much as I'd like to see, which is why I didn't take time to polish it, because I've done both already and haven't seen dramatic results with that. But one of the things where I made the mistake, at least I think this is a mistake. Remember, I only know what I know through trial and error and years of experience. And this has always worked well for me. I've actually never tried this before, so I will try this in the future. Probably won't do it in this video or with this build unless something happens where we got to take it apart. We got to, you know, take a look at what's going on inside, and then when I have more time, I would certainly do this. But basically what I'm told is that knife edging the intake and the 2 transfer ports is a bad idea. That actually creates turbulence of air, swirls of air basically, going in through the transfer and can actually slow that down just a little bit. And they actually recommended I round those and polish them. And so I can definitely see that happening in my head, thinking about how the scavenging effect works with the piston going down, creating the vacuum, pushing the air on top of the piston and out of the exhaust, right? So, you know, the exhaust comes in, smashes that, mixes it all together, and then it recirculates. So I can definitely see that being an issue, but I have no experience with it. So keep in mind, you know, you're taking these tips at your own discretion. I can't support something that I don't have any experience with myself. I've always done knife edging my whole life. I'd love to talk to somebody who's done porting their whole life and see, and I actually am going to go back through my book that I haven't finished reading and see if that's actually ideal. But I'm being told by a couple of people that do porting, especially on blasters, that you should round those off a little bit, and the intake. So the intake's almost round. But like I said, I think for this video, we're just going to leave it be. And then it is still going to increase the power a good bit. And so I'm happy with it. We're going to let it roll for now. And then later on, we can go back and change it. If we, you know, we can always take more off. We can't add it back once it's gone. So guys, take that for what it is. If you like that kind of idea, it makes sense to you, do that. And if not, don't do it. Do it the way I did it. Or do it the way you want to. It doesn't hurt to trial new things. Maybe you'll be the next innovator in the world of 2-stroke performance. So with that being said, let's move on to the next topic at hand while we install the bottom end. All right, guys, so check it out. I took a second, laid some stuff out here. We got Honda Bond 4, which is basically the same thing as 3-Bond or Yamaha Bond. It is a semi-drying sealant that we use on the cases. I forgot in the last video to tell you guys to make sure you put this on your crank seals. And then also intake gasket, base gasket. I highly recommend you coat both sides of those for 2 strokes because sealing the crankcase is extremely important when creating that vacuum and scavenging effect. I personally don't do a lot of leak down tests. I just make sure to take extra precaution and time in sealing everything up so that we don't have any issues. So with that being said, that's out of the way. Let's talk about head gaskets. We have a lot of different choices for head gaskets, believe it or not. A couple of them I don't have here. There is the copper gasket, which I have a used one here. You can reuse these. I highly don't recommend you reuse them, but you can reuse them. I have a brand new one right here. This is an eBay special. It's probably just copper coated, which is also fine because I copper spray multi-layer steel gaskets like this one to my left. I do that on turbo stuff a lot, and I debated a lot between which of these two gaskets to run. All my turbo vehicles run a multi-layer steel head gasket like this one. It is a single shim layer in the middle with your two sealed outer layers. There's actually a sealing compound, this black material, and it actually helps create a nice little seal when these guys are torqued down. I debated for a while whether I wanted to run this one. This is a Cometic gasket. And then, like I said, this one's an eBay special. I can't remember if it was a Cometic one or not. I order a lot of stuff, so it's hard to keep up with it all. But this I think, is the one we're going to go with because I like the crush ring on it, number one. And number two, it's a solid gasket with no shim layer. Once these get worn out, they can actually leak, or if anything gets the slightest bit of warpage, you can't save it. These will literally just blow out the side then. These will mold just a little bit to any slight warpage. Even though we already took time to surface this, I still just wanted to make sure to talk to you guys about this, why I'm doing it, so that way if you guys decide to turbo blaster in the future, you know what's going on. All the details for you. So let's get the bottom end put together.
Moving on, we have to double check the piston ring gap, and as always, Wiseco gives you very specific instructions on what to aim for. We have a 2.6-inch cylinder bore, or 68 millimeters. Therefore, we are aiming for around 11 thousandths of ring gap. However, we are going turbo, and the head will expand under intense heat and increased friction. So I personally will open this up to about 14 thousandths, both top and bottom ring, which should still run fine naturally aspirated. Once I'm done, I'll finish up installing the rest of the top end. Next on the list is the exhaust header. I don't like how ugly it is, and even though this isn't a showpiece, I'm still going to put some minor effort into sandblasting it to try and bring her back to life. More to come on this.
Alright guys, so check it out. Let's talk about two things really fast. Number one, the pipe. I'm going to show you guys some close-ups. I have a Harbor Freight sandblasting cabinet, and it uses a lot of air pressure to be able to sandblast, even with just glass beads and a custom-made nozzle that I made for it myself. I used about half my air tank just to get half this pipe done. And I also have a waste oil burner. and it uses about 5 pounds of air all day to keep it, 65 degrees in here so that I could actually work. So with those two things being said, I wasn't able to fully finish the pipe, but I'll show you guys what it looks like. So this is what the pipe looks like, essentially. You can see, things do clean up really good when you spend some time, and you can see it's kind of spotty looking yet. And then this is what it looks like before you sandblast it. This stuff does not wipe off. That's dust, but the actual sandblasting media, the glass beads, it does an okay job. It's just not what I thought it was going to be. I need a heavier grit, to be honest with you. So I started doing this and I was like, dude, this is taking forever. And I'm not powder coating it in this video. We'll probably powder coat it in the next video once we get the turbo mocked up on this thing. But yeah, I mean, it's starting to look a little bit better. But like I said, I didn't do the backside of it yet, so it's still kind of crusty looking. But I will finish this up in the next video. I want to get moving on. I want to get this thing running. And then the other thing we got to talk about is the carburetor. I was lucky, and this one came with stock jets. And then in the pile of parts that came with this thing brand new, there was 2 jets. Now these come stock with a 230 main and a 32.5 pilot. This is the OEM McCuney carburetor. I like the OEM the best. We might actually upgrade this for the turbo, but for this drag setup, we can run this for now. And I'll get into those details in the next video when we mount the turbo up. But anyways, I got a 35 pilot that came with it, brand new in the package, OEM McCuney jet, or Yamaha jet, sorry. And then I also have a 240 main, and then I have a 290 main. I don't actually carry jets for these smaller McCuney cars because I don't really do a whole lot with them. So basically, I'm going to try the 290 though, because I've heard of guys running like 260 to 290 in aftermarket pipes with open filters. And we have some porting done. And it's really cold out on top of that, which it should be a little bit richer jetting to help accommodate the colder temperatures. So we'll run the 290. We'll run the 35 and we'll see how she runs.
Now that we got the intake ported and the Rudezon intake installed, it's time to put all of this into the chassis. Easy peasy. Let's circle back to the exhaust system. The best solution I could come up with, other than fabricating something crazy, was to take the FMF header and the stock OEM header flange, cut that to fit the FMF diameter, and still use a stock exhaust compression seal to get this to crush against the end of the header without impeding the cylinder's flow at all. Weld the stock header flange to the FMF header and hope that provides enough of a seal, because the exhaust drive pressure is extremely important when you're talking turbos and boost. A small exhaust leak can cause you not to spool the turbo into its efficiency range at all, thus causing a no boost situation. So I have to pay careful attention to these details for it all to work properly, if at all. We have to finish installing the last few pieces here before we can attempt a first start. When I install the carburetor, I will be using an open filter for now. Also, the reason I cut the exhaust silencer off was to make it a drag stinger. And then also when we install the turbo, we will be able to reuse that. Not to mention I have a spare FMF silencer sitting to the side that I can toss on at any time as well.
All right, everything's done. Let's give her a first test. See if this baby will fire up. You got a leak. We're gonna try anyways. Works as a first test fire. Not exactly sure why it won't rev up, but I'm gonna investigate. I have the gas shut off because the petcock leaks on this tank. I have another blaster rolling chassis in the shed. I've got to go grab the gas tank off of that so that I can stop leaking gas all over the floor. And I think I have to adjust the float. But man, that baby revved high there for a second. I was really happy on that one. So let's get a break-in and then we'll take this thing for a ripper. All right, guys. So unfortunately, what we thought was just the blaster having run low on gas is not. It has developed some sort of issue. Let's take a quick peek. So as you can see, I have this thing pretty much, torn apart. I have the exhaust off. I have done a bunch of things this. I cannot get it to fire back up. It doesn't even sound like it wants to fire at all. I have tried changing the stator 2 times, putting a different coil on, putting an OEM CDI on, all off of this quad, and mind you, it has great spark, it has fantastic compression, it's getting fuel because the plug's wet, it's not flooded, there's nothing in the exhaust. I tried turning it over with the plug out, there's nothing coming out of the crankcase. I cleaned the carburetor, I took the reeds off, flipped them because they were, just a smidge, you could see light through it, flipped them, they're fine. I can't figure it out. I took both cases, I took this side case off, took the stator and flywheel off the other side, inspected both of the crank seals. Nothing wrong with the crank seals. They look like brand new still. So I'm at a loss for today's video. It is 3 o'clock. I've got to hurry up and get this thing uploaded. If you have a thought below on what you think the problem is before I tear the engine apart, comment below. Let me know what you think. If you guys like the blaster build, you want to see more of it, also drop me a comment. Let me know what you guys think. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out and thanks for watching.